Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining our fifth session of the 2024 Government and Public Sector Virtual Conference. We're rounding out the day today with a great presentation. My name is Christian Fieldgraf, and I'm a partner at Cherry Beckert and lead our government and public sector industry. We're hope you're going to take some time and join us tomorrow. We have a variety of topics as well from a virtual conference, but today, the final session for the day is around data analytics and the art of the possible. One of the things I think is really interesting that the questions throughout the day on other sessions we've had, there's been a lot of questions about using data analytics to do some of the different things that we talked about. So I think timing's perfect. And for those of you who have been with us throughout the day, I think you'll find this really, really interesting based on what you've already heard. And for those who are just joining for the first time for this session, I think you're going to find it interesting just on its own. But you also may want to go back and take some time and look at the videos from the previous sessions. That will be sent to you next week. So with that, I want to introduce our speakers today, George Delpret, Steve Thatcher, Josh Craig, Justin Jung, and Jen Tobin. So with that, George, take it away.
Thanks, Christian. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Delpret. I'll be speaking to you today about data analytics and the art of the possible. What we're going to cover today, those of you may have seen some of this, we'll go through that in a sec. There's the pretty pictures of all your speakers today. I'm a managing director at Cherry Beckert. Jen Tobin is well-versed in analytics and works in business development. And then we have two managers on our team, Justin Jung and Josh Craig, who are going to share some of their experience around public sector use cases and analytics. So we're looking forward to the session. The goal for the session today are really to share some examples of some of the things that we're seeing as a firm around public sector analytics use cases. So how other organizations are using it, what's been valuable. We're also going to share some of our experiences about the steps that organizations need to go through to essentially commence and put in place an analytics center of excellence and begin your own journey. We'll ask some questions about where you are and some of the challenges that you're experiencing and walk through some of those examples. And then we're going to end with some background and provide some information on some of those use cases and provide some internal and public sector data set examples that can help make informed decisions. And we'll talk about open data and some of the data sets that might be of value to you around various pieces of public sector available information. So let's jump in. We'll start with a polling session. And we want to start with a little bit of grounding here on what best describes the current state of your organization's data analytics strategy. We don't really have a central organization or any analytics tools or techniques. We have some general guidelines established for individuals to develop analytics on their own. We have a formal, detailed business intelligence or analytics strategy that we follow, or we have a very mature, established center of excellence coordinating all data analytics and tools we use in the organization. So go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll see what sort of results we get.
The majority of the vote was A, no central organization of analytics tools.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for participating.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. And I think, hopefully we'll be able to impart some wisdom today that will help you move from A to B, C, and D in the future. So let's start a little bit by just talking a little bit about the importance of data. And this is, I think something that we probably all realized, but it's really the information that you collect and gather, from your constituents and your own organizations is key to helping you make organizational decisions and unlocking insights so that you can perform more effectively. It's really viewed as an asset, and if used correctly, it can have significant impacts on your performance, how you serve your customers, provide more efficiency in the decisions you make to improve your processes and operations. I was doing a little bit of reading this morning, and one thing I thought was really interesting is just the amount of data that we as a society generate now and how much we actually produce on a daily basis, 328 to 400 million terabytes of data each day. Over the course of the year, that is 120 zettabytes of data each year. And in 2010, we produced 2 zettabytes of data a year. So you have about a 50x increase in the amount of data that's being generated each day. If we were able to harness a portion of that to help us make decisions, I think we'd be making some pretty amazing results. And I'm not great at math, but how many terabytes in a zettabyte? It's a billion. So that's pretty significant with the amount of data that we all generate. And so let's talk a little bit about how we can figure out ways to potentially harness that data and also why it's important in government. These are just a few of the reasons that we think are important. I'm sure you have your own, and we'd love to hear them in the chat. But one is transparency. If you are able to produce data analytics, you are able to be more transparent to the public about how you're using public funds and resources. Using data effectively can also provide better insight into the local community and how things are working or where there could potentially be improvements. It enhances awareness for you and your stakeholders. Data-driven organizations also are able to make more informed data-driven decisions. If you don't have the information you need on how much you've spent on something, or know what sorts of tax revenue you have coming in, it makes it very hard to make operational decisions. So providing that clear view into your own financial and operational data is another reason why it's important. If you have data and you use it effectively to make decisions, it can also help optimize the way you operate. I'm sure many organizations, I know we've been here, I've seen clients where you have to cut and paste information from one system into another because the systems don't talk together. If you have efficient analytics foundations, oftentimes you can eliminate that and have effective processes where the data flows between systems. And so you can better provide services to the public. The area of reporting and detection is another area. There's a lot of fraud out there, unfortunately, and analytics is one way to help identify that fraud before it happens so you can capture it. It's also, I think, we've talked to clients that produce reports, and you may have 2 people producing the same report but coming up with different results because you're not using the same data sets, or the reports are coming out differently. Those are just a few of the reasons why data analytics is important in government. So, all right, well, analytics is important. I want to do it. How do I start? What are some of the things that I'm going to need to do? It's not easy. You don't just flip a switch, unfortunately, and become, a very mature analytics organization. There are a number of areas that you need to think about, and a number of questions that you're going to answer, and things that you'll need to navigate through. So, technology questions. Do we have any tools that we could use to produce analytics and dashboards and reports? How are we deploying them today? How long is it going to take if we don't to put something in place? How do we use those tools, and how do we build something that's secure? Putting an analytics foundation in place can also, in some cases, run into resistance to change. Folks may be comfortable with the reports they have and not be willing to share that data or information, or be willing to change and do something differently. They may not be comfortable sharing data because there's a lack of trust about sharing certain information with others in the organization, or they have a bias against internal data sharing, or they don't have the time or desire to learn new technology that they would use for data analytics. Organizationally, maybe we don't have a real clear path forward. We may not have a strategy. We may not know how we want to use data analytics to improve our organizational decision-making. Maybe we have a BI that's business intelligence platform, but we've never really figured out who owns it or how to use it. Maybe we don't know where the data lives, or even what we have or how to use it. We might have pockets of users. Maybe finance has some users, or CIO has some users, or other organizational groups have different pieces of data, but there's no clear organizational view of everything. And then funding and staffing. It can take some money to build a strong data analytics organization. It doesn't have to cost a lot, but you need to figure out if you do have dollars to make investment and how that correlates with the goals that you set out for yourself. Maybe you don't have the internal resources with the right skill sets. So how can you train some of your own team members so that they can do this on their own? Maybe you don't have the time to implement or support or know sort of who's going to govern or own and lead the initiative. So these are some of the challenges that I think those of you that are in category A, where you don't really have a lot of analytics, need to work through some of these questions. One of the tools that we often use is this is a data analytics maturity model. These categories are pretty common. You see the analytics complexity starting from basic ad hoc reports down on the right to the organizational value on the right. Ad hoc and descriptive reports are what we call the foundational stage of data analytics. You may have basic visualizations or dashboards or operational reports for some things. As you become more advanced, you can look at patterns. An example might be maybe we're able to look at purchase card data and information and look for some anomalies and do some statistical analysis and find the outliers that may be suggestive of fraud. Maybe you can do some forecasts. You probably need to figure out what your headcount needs to be next year based on the budget or the things that you need to do and accomplish over the course of the next year with new legislative initiatives or things like that. And then as you move up the chain, you're into prescriptive and cognitive analytics, and we'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence at the end of this and ChatGPT and cognitive AI. And it helps further provide that maturity where you can do more advanced simulations and really use artificial intelligence to do more prescriptive analytics. So this is an area that could be considered a starting point, is to kind of do your own self-assessment of where you are on this chain and how you want to navigate, and what's really reasonable for you to navigate as an organization over the course of the year. So let's talk now a little bit about some of the key considerations to becoming data-driven and the things that organizations should think about to become more mature in creating a data analytics organization. And one of the first things you need to think about is what do we want to accomplish? Where are we right now? What can we reasonably accomplish over a period of time? We recommend kind of doing an as is to figure out where you are and putting together a roadmap of what you want to accomplish over the next few years. I say 3 years is a good time horizon. What can we reasonably accomplish? And then within the organization, where do we want to start? What are the most pressing things that we as an organization need analytics on? And we refer to those as use cases. How are we going to get there? So that's basically our project plan, our roadmap. All right. So we have a vision of where we want to go. What are the steps we need to take to get there? And then most importantly, how are we going to communicate that to the people in the organization and have them participate in this so that we have effective transformation where we have many folks in the organization working together to achieve a common goal. Access considerations, what do we own? What do we need from a tool perspective and data perspective? Where does that data reside? How do we need to leverage it to achieve the use cases that we've set out before? And who needs access to the results of that? Number of technology considerations. How should we architect this? Should we build a data warehouse, a data lake? Do we already have a database that we can write reports off of? Do we need to pull data together from multiple systems to answer some of the use case business questions that we need? How complex is the data that we have? What applications and tools do we have and do we need? When you get into the architecture, there's centralized data analytics platforms and business intelligence platforms approaches and distributed approaches where the data is in multiple areas and you're pulling it from them to produce common reports. So you need to think about, where all that data should live. And there's pros and cons to each. It really depends upon what you're trying to achieve. And then the infrastructure, should we build this, in-house on premise, or should we leverage some of the power of cloud services to be able to do this? And then governance, that's, all right, once we get moving, who's going to be responsible for this? What are the roles of different folks in the organizations? Who's going to own the application and be responsible for producing the analytics there? How long do we retain the data? How do we cleanse the data? How do we keep it secure? Who owns it? So these are all questions I think that you'll need to work through as you're moving from where you are today to become a more mature data analytics organization. And I'm going to turn it over to Jen, who's going to talk about the Analytics Center of Excellence and some of the things that you may want to think about to help you on that roadmap. Jen?
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everyone. We've discussed how data can impact the way your organization works, and now I want to talk you through the components of building a center of excellence that will help ensure success of your data initiatives. The roadmap I'm sharing on the screen is based on a model that was developed by one of our analytic partners, but it's relevant really to any analytics platform you may have, and it is key to strategically planning a successful deployment. Just investing in an analytics platform does not ensure success. We are seeing a lot of organizations with siloed initiatives, and sorry, the polling question just came up. I have seen, I think during COVID, a lot of municipalities, cities, towns, they may have bought a handful of licenses and, given them to the finance department or the HR department. But what happens is then those licenses are just sitting in individual departments with individual teams. And you run into an inconsistent usage, inconsistent in reporting of metrics, and a frustration of not knowing how to fully use the technology or even how to get to the data in order to use the technology. Data is your most valuable asset, and by building a center of excellence within your organization, you are ensuring a solid foundation and a road to success for adoption and usage. Building a COE is a cultural approach supported by technical excellence that supports your analytics initiatives to achieve and maintain success. Realizing the full value of your data empowers everyone in the organization to be able to access it and to be able to use it to make data-driven decisions. This is also going to drive organizational transformation by prioritizing fact over assumptions with data at the center of every conversation. And I want to give a quick true story here. I had a client several years ago who reached out and said, "Hey, we presented this information to our board last month. Can you please take the data and make a dashboard so that we can send it out on a regular basis?" What happened was the information that they gave to the board was complete opposite of what the data was telling us. So being able to truly make decisions based on actual data and not on assumptions is critical. Influencing change within the organization requires consistent effort and coordination around all stakeholders and users. Facilitation requires executive sponsorship, as well as an alignment and participation from a wide set of cross-functional teams to ensure the needs of the entire organization are met. Executive sponsors working with the project team need to consider not only how to scale the technology, but what is the right support, training, and management structure to effectively navigate change management alongside adoption and overcoming the organizational roadblocks to become data-driven. Governance is a crucial part of your data analytics. It involves establishing policies and practices to ensure proper management of your data. This will help ensure that the data is accurate, it's secure, it's compliant, it's validated, and it's being used correctly. It's your single source of truth. Once your strategy has been defined and your team is in place, the fun can begin. Phase one is really building out your agile environment. I know George touched on a lot of these pieces. This is not even scratching the surface, but I wanted to give you some content to start thinking about. Your deployment includes the designing of architecture, creating a platform, and configuration of your environment. There are a lot of things to take into consideration. Are you going to be in the cloud? Do you want everything to live on-prem? What hardware and software needs do you have? And what do you need to purchase? Do you have a need for high availability and redundancy to ensure uptime? What is your authentication model going to look like? And what security needs do you have, and how are those going to be structured? The foundation for your analytics platform needs to meet the needs of your organization, and it needs to be scalable as your footprint in your BI platform grows, your users grow, and your content grows. Regular monitoring is needed to operate and support your deployment at scale. In addition to the traditional IT monitoring activities that help determine if your organization's equipment and services are working properly and help detect and resolve problems, you also need to understand user activity and usage within your deployment. And just like your car, maintenance is key. Ensuring your organization has access to reliable, performant, and up-to-date data, and to ensure that your environment is functioning at its optimal performance. Phase 2 is really building the analytics proficiency within your organization. Organizations need to ensure that employees are prepared to effectively use the tools, and training is key to this. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If users get frustrated with the technology due to lack of training or resources, they will stop using it. I don't know how to do this. I can't figure this out. I don't have time. I'm walking away. Without the investment in training and education, the program will risk failure. And the nice thing after COVID, there are so many opportunities for training, whether it's on-site, whether it's virtual, whether there plethitude of opportunity out there. Measurement is also important. It's important to measure the engagement and the adoption of your users, as well as content usage and visualization performance. If a dashboard takes 25 seconds to load, that user is not going to come back. This includes having accountability systems in place to make sure that technology is being adopted and is being used. And if it's not, understanding why. I had a client who ran the sales operations group in her department, and she had a wide swath of users. There was a group who was using it every day, making all their decisions with it. But then there was a group of users who weren't really logging in, and they were not using their BI platform very regularly. We went and had conversations with them to understand what the barrier was. Did they need different reporting? Did they not know how to use the software? Did they need training? And what those conversations did, it gave us the ability to go back and make changes and got the whole group using their BI platform on a daily basis. It's imperative to motivate users to advance their skills and increase usage as well. This can be done through thought processes. It can be done through supporting tools. You can even have internal competitions. Enabling users with best practices supplements learning and helps build a common standard for formatting and presenting as an organization. This can include style guides, color palettes, understanding design principles, understanding best visual usage for the data being presented. I worked for a gentleman, and he will never forget, he said no more than 3 pies in a pie chart. Otherwise, it's not telling a story. The last phase is really developing your community. And I kind of relate this to moving into a new neighborhood. I need to understand the communication. I want to get engaged. And if I need help, where do I go? A successful implementation to foster a strong culture of analytics requires an effective communication plan and sharing of your analytics strategy. Why are we doing this? How's it going to benefit me? How will this help improve the workload? How will they be supported? This could include things like discussion forums, resource libraries, access to online resources, webinars, and of course, training. Establishing collaboration framework to get and keep users engaged and excited is key. This can include hosting lunch and learns. We did this with the Maryland libraries. We host monthly lunch and learns that provides the ability for all the systems to collaborate, to share ideas, to talk through issues, to understand new features and functionalities that are coming out. It's been key. Internal and external user groups, even an analytics showcase where users can present their use case and what they developed. Help and support, clearly defined, easily accessible support processes that the team knows how to access. Champions also within the organization are key. If you can identify your power users, you can let them be resources for the rest of the team. I don't know how to make this calculation. They've got somebody that they can go to support them. I wish you the very best in your analytics journey. And George, I believe next is a polling question.
Thanks, Jen. Lots of great information here that I think you can digest and figure out how to deploy on your own. So let's talk about the polling question 2. In my organizations, leaders and team members can access dashboards and reports with real-time data needed to aid in our decision-making. A is true. B, we have some dashboards and reports, but data is not real time and/or reports can be run by different people with different results. C, we need to have a technical resource develop the report each time we need it. Or D, we don't have the analytics we need to make decisions efficiently. So go ahead and provide results.
Okay, looks like B is the winner here. We have some dashboards and reports, but data is not real time and or reports can be run by different people with different results.
That's actually great. I think it's good to see that. So, 70% of you actually have the kinds of information you need to run the organization and have solid analytics. So that's positive. But we got to figure out how to come up with a single version of the truth to alleviate that issue that Jen just talked about before. So what we're going to do now is go into some public sector use cases and demonstrations to talk about some of the things that we see out in the public sector and things that organizations have built that may be of interest to you. And we're going to start with looking at some examples of some dashboards we created for a library to help them track a number of things that were important to their key decision makers. And then go into a review of purchase card fraud and monitoring and look at some analytics there. Then we'll talk a little bit about open data, and we'll finish it with a review of some resources the federal government has put together around artificial intelligence. So Josh, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, George. And if you could stop sharing your screen so I could take over, that'd be great. All right. All right, are you all able to see my screen, George?
Yes, Josh, we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, as Jen mentioned, we have done some work, a lot of work with the Maryland Library. So we wanted to show you some examples of what we've done there. This work actually started with one library in Maryland purchasing a Tableau server, which led to a system-wide deployment of Tableau server throughout the Maryland libraries, which is very cool. So we're just going to show some examples here today of things that interesting stories that came out of here. So first, I'm going to go into this executive board report. You'll see here, this is a high-level executive board report for the executives with key metrics, KPIs that they all want to see on a monthly basis. Well, the story behind this report is it came from 17 different data sources that we had to aggregate and get in one place so that we could display on one dashboard and page, that it now goes out manually through a subscription through Tableau server where it is published. So this is all automated and all the manual pieces are taken out of it. And like I said, that was 17 different places that the data was coming from, and we were able to get it all into one. Next, I'm going to go into the adult collection and circulation details. This report is used to see how different books are circulated throughout different branches. So you'll see I can select a different branch, see how different books in different fiction categories and paperback categories, how they are actually circulated throughout those branches. It's important because the libraries need to see how the books are circulated to see if they need to move the books to different branches or if they need to purchase more books for specific branches that are in there.
Josh, excuse me. Is there any way to expand that image out a little bit? Somebody said that the data is super tiny.
I am not positive how to make it any larger.
And for our viewers out there, you could double click on the presentation screen and that might expand it out just a little bit for you too. So Josh, if you're not able to on your side, the attendees could as well.
Let me just do this. We'll make it super big on the fly. Go back into here. Is that any better?
I think that's better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
All right.
better.
So with that, where we were going through, so we had described how the what this report was used for, correct? So the main piece that goes into this entire thing, and that's very important and very powerful, is this used to be a 1,700-page PDF report that came out of their ILS system. So we are able to pull all of that information into one dashboard so they can get to all of that information without having to sift through that massive PDF report and find exactly what they needed to find. So this is actually a very, very powerful report and has helped them significantly. And we've utilized this throughout multiple libraries across the entire Maryland library system. The last thing I'm going to show you is just the mapping capabilities that we have. We are currently looking at dashboards that are inside of Tableau, but there are great mapping capabilities that we have in here and that we could use. And there was a use case that came up, it was actually like 3 weeks ago, where you can see we're just, in this report, we're just showing where the branches are, the number of branches through each of them, and you can highlight and go over them. Well, what the library that we were speaking with was able to do was use this mapping data that we have here and pair it with their own internal data that they had, where they were looking at census data for charging stations for electric cars. What they needed to find is they had a initiative to put a specific amount of charging stations at different libraries now, but they wanted to look at the census data to overlay that demographic data to make the decisions of where that data would go and where they should put those charging stations. So I just wanted to throw this one in here quickly and give you one example of what we've done with that as well. I'm gonna go home. And that's what we've done. Those are the examples we wanted to show from the library. I'm gonna switch to the purchase card analysis example. And just for the purposes of the demo, I'm gonna make this one a little bit bigger as well, right off the bat. And you'll see here, this is actually purchase card data that I just ripped offline, but this is the type of analysis that we've done from a bunch of different clients that we have, where we can actually start to see the amount of transactions versus the amount of amounts. And you'll see in the scatter plot, we can quickly point out anomalies. These are all interactive. So we can actually select on the anomalies and see which merchants and which agencies those are coming from. We can also uncheck this here, click on a different, let's just say a transaction by the description there. Let's actually go around here throughout. So now we have different transactions and we can see it's slicing and dicing by the different dimensions that we have on the entire dashboard, so we can see the amount versus the transactions and where those anomalies occur. And if we want to actually look at the transactions that are coming out from the actual scatter plot, for example, this specific person, why they have such high transactions with low transaction amounts, we can actually select and drill down into the detail and get the list of every single one of those transactions that person is looking for. So we can start to see and identify anomalies such as the $91,000 that is right here. Lastly, this is another anomaly detection that I built out using the same data. You'll see on the left side, we're looking at the amount per transaction. And on the right side, we're actually looking at the amount per transaction versus the average amount. So it's actually subtracting the average amount of the transaction from there to see what the big difference is in here. And you'll see our DS sticks out very large right here. Well, if I want to see the detail of what his transactions actually are, his or her transactions, I would say, we can click in here and you'll quickly see that there are large transactions coming from this person, and then we could investigate those transactions because we have those details that are coming in right here as well. We can do the same thing as the amount per transaction by merchant as well. And you'll see if we click here, by no surprise, those same amounts from DS are actually rolling up down here. So we could actually take this and do some investigation and also put alerts on here, so that if there are alerts for high purchase transactions or anything like that, it actually send you a data-driven email through whatever BI system that you are actually using. So those are the two examples that I had. So I'm going to hand it off to Justin for him to share.
Alrighty, thanks, Josh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Jung. I'm here to talk to you all about open data. George, did you want to bring up the PowerPoint once again so we can go through some of those slides? Excellent. Alrighty. So once we go full screen here, we can just go ahead and get started. All right, thanks, George. So I'm here to talk to you about open data, and some of you may already be familiar with what open data is or government open data, but just at the highest level to simplify what government open data is making government data available to the public, so making that open so that people who want to access that data have that access. So when we say people, that can be anyone from the citizens, analysts, data analysts, news and journalists, developers, it can be other government users, it can be entrepreneurs and businesses, or even researchers interested in looking at data. And the way that government open data works, it's to promote really a few main things. It's to promote accountability in government, efficiency in government, transparency in government. So already hearing those three words, we know that that's clear. That's clearly important in public sector, but also when you start thinking through improvement, right? Process improvement, innovation, and accessibility, making government data accessible to whoever wants to have access to that data is really important. So if we go to this next slide here, the US federal government actually has an open data portal, and you may or may not be aware of that, but back in 2018, the federal government came out with the Open Government Data Act. And this act actually requires federal agencies to publish their information online as open data. And the way that they do that is they upload their data, they make sure that that data is standardized, machine readable, and they also provide metadata, right? So data about that data. And they have this all in the data.gov catalog, which we'll take a look at in just a few minutes here. Some other agencies out there in the federal government actually have their own open data portals. So some examples are HHS has their own open data portal. The U.S. Department of Transportation has their own open data portal. And then the CDC also has their own open data portal. Now, that's the federal level. Also at the state level, there are other types of open data portals, different offerings depending on what those state requirements are. But a few examples that I've seen I used to work for the state of Maryland. So at the state of Maryland, there is an open data portal. The state of Virginia has one, New Jersey, Texas, Pennsylvania. These are some great examples if you are interested in checking some of those out. And then also at the municipality level, some cities actually have created open data portals. And although it's not as widespread as the state level, they certainly do exist. We can go to the next one. So before we just go into an actual demo of what some of those open data portals actually look like and what they can do, here are some examples of what's actually available to you. So depending on where you're located or what state or municipality that you may be located in, your local government or state government, public sector entity might actually have an open data portal. But here are a few examples. So that first screenshot that you see down there in the bottom right, that is the US government's open data portal. And you can just access that by going to www.data.gov. Right behind that is an example of the Department of Transportation's open data portal. Right behind that is the Department of Health, the HHS open data portal, right? Healthdata.gov. And then behind that are just two examples of state open data portals. We have the state of Virginia, where they have an open data portal, as well as the state of Maryland. And so with a lot of with all of these, really, they operate and they might have different details, or they might have different things that you can do within the actual data portal, but they all operate at a very similar level as they are working towards, again, those main things: accountability, efficiency, transparency, the ability to improve, innovate, and making that data accessible for really all types of users. And so, George, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So go ahead and pull this up. Alrighty, so can everybody just give me a thumbs up just to make sure my screen is being shared? Excellent, thank you. All right, so here we just have the US government's open data portal. And so all I did was just went to data.gov. And here, right off the bat, I see that there's over 290,000 data sets available to the public. And so right when I go in here, I see a search bar. I can actually search for different data sets, but I can also search by looking at most viewed data sets. Or I can actually, I'm going to go back, look at recently added data sets by organization. So let's say I'm on here and just randomly thinking through, I want to look at labor data. Maybe you want to build a report or dashboard on labor data. And I actually want to look at what the Department of Labor has out there, right? So I clicked on, I'll slow it down just a little bit right there. So I clicked on data sets by organization, and I'm scrolling down, and I don't see the Department of Labor yet. I'm just going to go to the next page and see the wheels turning, keep going. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security. And right here, I see the Department of Labor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that as a category. And right off the bat, it lists out that the Department of Labor actually has 459 data sets on this US open data portal. And so I can actually just scroll through and see what type of data sets there are. I can see what ways I can actually get this data. So if there's an HTML that I can pull that data from, I can do that. If there are data sets that allow you to pull this data via CSV or JSON or OData, it'll also showcase that. So that's just an example at a very high level. I do want to go into another example with the US Department of Transportation. So if I go to data.transformation.gov, I see just the way that they've organized this is actually really helpful for me. It's the first thing that I see is I can see all different types of data categories, from railroads, roadway and bridges, pipeline and hazmat, all the way to bicycles and pedestrians type or related data. And so as I'm scrolling down, I know I can go straight to the catalog here just to look at that. But if I wanted to, let's say, just look at public transit data, I can click on that. And I see that right when this catalog pops up for public transit, there's different types of views that I can see this data in. So there are some data sets that have already had charts and visualizations created for that data sets. But let's say I just want to look at that raw data. So I'm going to click on data sets right here. And I'm interested in looking at non-major safety and security events. So I click on that, and right off the bat, I see a primer page. And so this is just going to show me the metadata of that data, the data set. So I see when this data set was last updated. I see that it was last updated August 6th. It shows me who I can contact if I wanted to know more about this data set, what that source is, how many times this data set's been viewed or downloaded even. I can scroll down, see the different columns that I'm going to be seeing if I look at this data set. And I'm going to go ahead and click on data right here. And when I click on that, I see what that actual raw data looks like. So I see all of this data organized into columns and rows. And so once I decide I want to look at this data set in another view, or if I wanted to actually pull this into Excel, build visualizations there, or actually into another reporting or dashboarding tool, you can actually pull this data by exporting it and look at it in Tableau or ClickSense or Power BI. You know, with my time over at the state of Maryland, I saw a lot of times people using the OData feed and going directly into that. And so here's how you can do that with this platform specifically, right? The transportation.gov platform, or any platform that uses this Socrata software. I can actually query this data. I can There's an API link right here. I can access this via OData, and I can just copy that link there. Or I can even just export this as a CSV or the CSV for Excel and just XML. And so really, it's just a great tool. If you haven't used it before, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's really great to actually see what type of data sets are being made available in these open data portals. And you have this ability to pull them into different tools that you can build your own visualizations and reports with, and really analyze that government data. So that's all I have for you today on open data.
Thanks, Justin. I'm going to share my screen again, so hit stop share, and we will go back through, talk a little bit about AI and the federal government open AI inventory. All right, it says you need to stop share. It says it's a red button up.
There we go.
Thank you. All right, so artificial intelligence. I think we've all heard about ChatGPT now and what it is. Artificial intelligence was at the top of the food chain in the analytics maturity model, and a lot of organizations are now jumping in to figure out how they could potentially use it. It's really the simulation of human intelligence by machines. So ChatGPT, that's what we call generative AI. It's a large language model that can generate text, images, voice, lots of amazing things that it can do to help organizations. Why is it important to you? It presents lots of opportunities to do a lot of analytics of vast amounts of data to really make it easier for all of us as humans to make decisions. There are smart ways to use it and not. So we're up against the clock a little bit, but this is an AI diagnostic that we walk organizations through that can help you think about how to potentially apply AI within your organization. So the first couple steps are to really learn a little bit about what it is and demystify it, and then come up with a diagnosis of how it could potentially be used in an organization. That's typically done in the course of a couple weeks. And then you start to build and prototype and look at ways that you can apply it for use cases in your organization that would make your lives easier to analyze large amounts of data. And then the final stage is to figure out how to take those prototypes and put them into production so that we can use them across the organization. We're kind of running out of time here, so I'm not going to be able to go into a lot of detail here. A couple other things that I do want to show you. One is the AI inventory. So you can go to ai.gov. This is something that the federal government has put together. And there is a use case inventory. You'll find it by going to ai.gov and clicking on learn more about government use of AI, and then you can download the full use case inventory. And in the last minute here, we're going to take a quick look at that. I'm going to show you what happens if you download this. You get an Excel file. Let's pull it up. So not really nice to look at, but Josh was nice enough to take 90 minutes of his time to put this into a format that is a lot more visually appealing. But we've got over 600 different examples of things that various federal agencies are doing to use AI, which is interesting. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to take a look at this cool dashboard that Josh put together and talk about a couple of examples of how some of the federal organizations are using AI and piloting that today.
Yep. So I just broke this down by agency, office, department, techniques, and development stages. And just like the other
screen, Josh.
Oh, I apologize. I forgot to hit share.
Here we go.
Yep. So I broke it down, like I said, by agency, office, department, techniques, and development stage. With here, you can actually it's interactive, just like the other one was. So if I go here and I click on our customs border and protection, and then go ahead and click on, let's just say machine vision, and I drill down, you'll see I actually got all the detail of the custom and border protection using actual machine vision. And George, I think you wanted to highlight this one specifically right here on vessel detection.
Yeah, one of the things that Customs and Border Protection's been piloting with AI is to look at the things that are coming over in vessels and evaluating whether there are potential threats there, or they're bringing certain things into the country that we may not want here. So it allows an agent to set a search with certain criteria to help make decisions, and they use drones and other background information to help detect whether there are concerns with things that are coming over in certain ships. So that's pretty cool. And then there was one that we're going to look at for the Department of Agriculture, which is also looking at things that are coming into the country. This is with the Animal Plant Inspection and Health Service, but what they're looking at are potential diseases that could come over in crops or vegetation or animals that are coming over. So another example of how they're leveraging artificial intelligence. And so I think I would encourage you to take a look at AI.gov and look through some of the use cases and see if there's anything being done there, potentially be applications that might help your own organizations. So Josh, if you stop sharing, I think we've got a couple more polling questions. So are you using AI within your organization today? Let's just take a minute. No, we're starting to explore it. We're piloting it, or we're actively using it. It's really a powerful tool. And I think, although ChatGPT is out there, I will say you don't want to take your organizational data and put it into ChatGPT or BART or any of the other publicly available AI, because once you do that, your sensitive information is no longer public. There are managed services that you can get from Amazon or Microsoft or Google or other large cloud providers, so that you can have a private version of your own AI to experiment with. Do we have any results yet, Maddie? All right, so not a surprise. I mean, ChatGPT and AI has not been used by organizations or piloted really until the last couple of years. The initiative I talked about with the federal government has really just started in 2023, aside from some outlier agencies. But check it out, lots of neat things there. And then we got one final polling question, and I think that will do it. And we went a little bit long today, so I apologize for that. We're really excited to have a chance to talk to you. Final polling question is if you're interested in talking to a member of our team about anything that we talked about in the presentation or learning more, feel free to respond appropriately here. And that will do it for us today. I'll turn it back over to Christian.
Thanks, George, and thanks everybody for joining. That does conclude our fifth and final session for the day. Thanks again for joining us. If you have questions, reach out to anybody on the team at any time. I would encourage you to do it. This is new stuff that's out there with AI in particular, and doing dashboards isn't the same as analytics. I used to spend a lot of time doing budget systems for clients, government clients around the world, and I used to say, it's all about a single version of the truth. And about 10 years ago, that really changed. It's now about that's just an assumption that you're going to have a single version of truth. It's about analyzing data. It's about the hallway conversations where you run into the political leadership or the legislative leadership, and they say, tell me about X, Y, and Z, the what if scenarios. And they expect you to have an answer really, really quickly for them. And that's the difference between just providing a dashboard, like Jen said, showing information versus analyzing it. The folks who are in the call are some of the best I've ever worked with. And so it's great to have them as part of the team and make them a resource for you. Just pick up the phone and call them, shoot them an email. Just say, hey, I have a question. How does this work? Or do you have any thoughts on this? I really encourage you to do that. And we're happy to do that for you. You're going to get, when you click out of this or when it ends, you're going to get a survey for some feedback. Really appreciate if you'll take a moment to do that. I've asked this at the end of every one. This is how we get our feedback as we do our programming for future webinars that we host. And then again, this session next year. Love to hear what people what they want to see, what's important to you. And we'll go from there. And then just as a reminder, check the registration site linked in the chat for the next sessions tomorrow. And again, recordings will be available in about a week. The first session will be tomorrow, 10 a.m., and it's about trust in government. Where are we and where do we need to go from here? That I'll be hosting along with a gentleman by the name of Robert Shea. So hope to see you then. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thanks for joining us.